Okay, this is lesson 7 for linear relations. Example 3. So Damien works at a paint supply store. Most customers buy paint cans in large quantities. So Damien has made the following table as a quick reference for the cost of different quantities of cans of a particular brand of paint. So 2 cans cost him 49, 4 cans cost him 98, 8 cans cost him 196, and 14 cans costs him $343. So A, if the data were drawn on a graph, what would be the slope? B, write an equation that represents the relationship between total cost and number of paint cans purchased. And C, how many paint cans can be purchased for $245? Okay, solution. So for number 1, if the data were drawn on a graph, what would be the slope? So the data represents a direct linear relation. And that's because if there's 0 cans, $0. Okay, so it started 0 and 0. If the data were graphed, the number of cans would be the x value, which is the independent variable, and the cost would be the y value, the dependent variable. And you can just see that from the table too, right? This would be your x, this would be your y. Therefore, the line would include the following points: 0 and 0, 2 and 49, 4 and 98, 8 and 196, and 14 cans would cost you 343. So calculate the slope using one of these points. Now, here, what they're showing is slope equals y over x. And again, remember that means rise over run. And if the graph starts at 0 and 0, you can just choose one of the pairs. So in this case, they went with this one here, 4 and 98. And the reason is on the graph, so it's going to end up looking something like this. It's going to start at 0 and 0 and go up. What it's saying is they're picking 4 and 98. So maybe 4 and 98 is right here. Okay. So the reason why they can just slap them in there like that without looking at the graph is because they know it starts at 0 and 0. So the rise is 98 and the run is 4. So that's what they're doing there. So you could do that for any of these points. And the slope ends up being 2450. And what the slope is it's the cost per can of paint. So if we look back at the table, 2 times 2450 gets you $49. 4 times 2450 gets you $98. Okay, B. Says write an equation that represents the relationship between the total cost and the number of paint cans purchased. Okay, because it starts at 0 and 0, you just need y equals mx. Substitute in the names of the variables and the slope. So we figured out the slope, and we're going to put in 2450. Y is the total cost. X is the number of paint cans. And if you forget, just look back at the table. X and Y. Now C, it says, how many paint cans can be purchased for $245? So in this case, we have our equation, total cost, $24.50 a can, times the number of paint cans. If we put in the total cost, we just have to do some basic algebra. So $24.50 times the number of paint cans. If we want to get the number of paint cans, we have to get rid of this $24.50. If it is being multiplied, you have to do the opposite to both sides. So divide by 24.50 over here and divide by 24.50 over here. And 24.50 divided by 24.50 is 1. So it's gone. Okay. 245 divided by 24.50 ends up being the number of paint cans, which is 10. So for $24.50 or for $245, you could buy 10 paint cans. And that is the end of lesson 7, part 1. In the next video, I will be doing the build your skills.